Hear that? Of course not, because a dead car battery doesn't make a sound. You know who does make sound? Your daughter. And if you miss her big game, she'll make plenty of angry, high-pitched sounds. Better head to your neighborhood Advance Auto Parts. We offer free battery testing, a 3-year replacement warranty on our Platinum batteries, and free installation from one of our parts pros. Advance Auto Parts. Let's get you back on the road. Most vehicles, most locations. See store for details.
All right, it's Tuesday, and this is the Family Friendly Show, and I'm fired up to get this podcast started. And you know why I'm so fired up today? Because I already loaded up on Alpha Brain and coffee. I don't podcast without Alpha Brain because I need to be razor sharp and laser focused behind the mic, and that's what Alpha Brain helps me do. So another swig of coffee for Onnit, the fine folks who make Alpha Brain. And if you go to Onnit.com/Steve to get some Alpha Brain for yourself, you can save 10% off your order. You can save 10% off anything you order at Onnit.com/Steve. So, yes, you can get 10% off Shroom Tech Sport. Shroom Tech Sport will give your workouts a boost. It helps you go longer and recover faster. And, yes, you can get 10% off T+. T+ increases strength and power. It'll improve your athletic performance, and it's safe to use if you're competing. So go take advantage of this 10% discount off your order. Just go to Onnit.com/Steve. Another great thing about Onnit and all their products is if they don't work the way they're supposed to, you can get all your money back, no questions asked. Money back guarantee. So go to Onnit.com/Steve to get your 10% discount off all supplements. That's ONNIT.com/Steve to get 10% off your order.
The following program is a podcast1.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah! Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the main streets of Los Angeles, California today, sitting here in my office at 316 Gimmick Street. I'm sitting right here at my table that I always sit at. I got my Pearl Beer neon clock. It's unplugged. I got the window open, if you can hear that breeze coming through here. It's an absolutely beautiful day. I'm sitting here on Sunday. It's Mother's Day. So if you listen to this podcast on Tuesday or if you listen to it any other day, if you're a mother, I'd like to say Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. And a little bit late, but nonetheless, I got it out there. And speaking of Mother's Day, I'll tell you what I did. I put my money where my mouth is. I used thebooks.com to send my mom down there in Edna, Texas, a badass bouquet of flowers all the way from the Himalayan volcanoes or wherever they grow them things. And I used the code. I got like 20% off, and then I used my Amazon link, and I kicked back a little money to the show to pay for production costs in the process. So it was a win-win-win for the kid on Alpha Brain over here. What a smart decision on my part. And it was pretty damn easy. Well, I say it was easy. It was actually my wife who got on the computer and ordered the flowers. But nonetheless, we used thebooks.com, and it turned out just perfect because my mom texted me the picture of the flowers that we sent her. And we always sent her a bunch of flowers, but this time I think we sent the tropical arrangement that they had. And it looked really badass, and she was really happy with them. So if y'all use thebooks.com, I hope you came out as well as I did. And speaking of flowers, man, it's Mother's Day. My illustrious wife, Kristen, went out to see her mom, who lives about 50 miles away, and visit her for Mother's Day. And so I took this opportunity to go down to the grocery store and get my wife a big-ass bouquet of flowers. See, I didn't want to use the books.com here because my wife would know about it because she looks at all the credit cards and stuff. So I snuck down there. I got her big-ass bunch of flowers, a couple of sappy cards, wrote my name on them, and wrote Hershey and Shona and Moolah's name on them. So anyway, we'll see how that little extravaganza pays off. She's en route right now. She's headed back to the house. And I figured for Mother's Day what we would do is walk down to this little club we belong to that looks out over the marina, the water there, and have a couple of, I'll have a couple of double margaritas with Patron Silver extra shot on the side. They make them Broken Skull Ranch style for me in a short glass, and my wife will have a single or two and have a bite to eat and then walk back home and just kind of chill out. That way, as much as my wife loves to cook, that way on Mother's Day she ain't got to prepare me a meal, and it saves me from washing the dishes. I know some people out there thinking, what are you talking about, Steve? You don't wash no dishes. Yeah, you damn right I do. A global icon and a national treasure. Every morning I wash the breakfast dishes and I wash the dinner dishes, and that's my job. And I cook my own breakfast. She cooks me dinner. And all the other meals that I eat during the day, I clean up my own mess. But that's how we roll over here, and we don't use no dishwasher either. Wash everything by hand. So I figured we'd save that and kind of watch the sun go down and have a margarita or two, have a nibble to eat, and come back home and just kick it. We're trying to find a new show to watch on television. Better Call Saul ended. What was that other show we was watching? I can't remember what else just ended. So we're trying to find a new show to watch. If you got any suggestions, send them to questions at steveaustonshow.com. Hey, man, on a personal note, my shoulder's feeling pretty damn good. My body, through all the surgeries I've had, normally it heals up pretty damn quickly. And the holes in my shoulder that they drilled, you can barely see. The scars are there. The scabs have disappeared. My shoulder looks pretty normal. I've got my bicep, because of all that trauma and surgery they did on my shoulder, my bicep is full of blood, and it kind of pools up because I wear this sling so much, so it looks like I got about a 19, 20-inch jack on my right side, and my left arm is shriveled down to about 16 inches. I don't know. It's bad because I haven't touched a weight since a little bit before the surgery, and obviously I ain't done nothing since because my doctor just gave me clearance to get on a cardio machine, and I can lift some light weights with my left arm, like curls and some tricep pushdowns with one arm, but nothing too heavy that I engage that right shoulder or that right bicep, or I'll rip everything out of there. So it was an extensive repair, but everything's healing up real nice. I'm cleared to do cardio, and I can probably do some light leg presses. I cannot grab a bar to squat with, can't put any weight on my back, and don't have the extension to reach out there with my right arm to hold a bar. But I can do some leg extensions, curls, and some calf work, and try to get my soft ass back into shape, because I believe we're going to be shooting some Broken Skull Challenge here. I don't know about the official word, but the word on the street sounds very encouraging. So I got to get my ass in shape because as you saw, this past season, the Broken Skull Challenge was off the chart. It was tough, gritty, badass, and we had some elite athletes out there, and we're looking for more of the same to give you guys the kind of TV that you deserve, and that's Whoop-Ass TV on country music television, bringing it to you the way we bring it to you. Anyway, enough about that. I'm just sitting here chilling back, man, sitting in my recliner. Well, this office chair that reclines. And, hey, let me tell you about my guest today. My guest today is a real cool dude named Michael Waddell. The dude hosts a couple of badass shows on the Outdoor Channel. Michael Waddell's Bone Collector and the Real Tree Roadtrips on the Outdoor Channel. And he does a lot of other things, too, behind the scenes. I met Michael a while back. We always cross paths every here and there, and I just got finished seeing him in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at the Great American Outdoor Show, where I was representing Kawasaki Motorsports, and he was representing Outdoor Channel, and we were sitting there in the airport that morning getting ready to fly back to Los Angeles, and I was drinking a Bloody Mary, and Michael comes up and introduces himself to me, and I said, man, I know who you are. I've been watching your shows forever. So anyway, hey, he's the host of a couple of shows, and the guy loves to hunt. It's his passion, but we're not going to talk about killing animals or anything like that. So if you're thinking, hey, man, they're just going to talk about killing things. No, we're not. We're going to talk about how he got involved in hunting, how I got involved in hunting. He's got some great guide stories about hunting with the late, great Dale Earnhardt. A really good storyteller. Michael's from down there around Columbus, Georgia area, so he's got that southern drawl. He's got a gift for gab. He's a very charismatic guy and a very down-to-earth guy. So if you're thinking we're going to talk about shooting animals, we're not. Because it's turkey season, on the back half of the podcast, I'll ask him some turkey calling tips, because I've been watching all these shows on turkey calling and the psychology and the strategy about that, and I got a couple of stories about when I was doing a little bit of turkey hunting down there in Georgia and almost choked to death on a damn mouth call. But listen to this story, because we're not trying to convince you to turn into a hunter, but I think maybe you'll go out there and give the outdoors a try if you've never tried it before. But it's a great conversation, and again, it's not what you're going to think it is. It ain't killing. We're just talking about hunting and being outdoors and living the outdoor lifestyle. It's conservation and respect for Mother Nature. He's a good dude. I had a great time talking to him. I think you'll enjoy the conversation. But before we get into the body of the podcast and talk to Michael Waddell, I got to say thanks to all you guys for supporting the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. These sponsors are why I get to open 2 cans of audio whoop-ass for you every single week. So thanks to the Work Switch Driver. This is the tool you need to make all those home improvement projects and repairs quick and easy. The Work Switch Driver is a power drill that lets you rotate from drill to driver without changing bits, so you can get all those home projects done quick and easy. And the switch driver is cordless, too, so that means you ain't going to be tripping or getting tangled up in a dang cord. And don't worry about the torque and power of the switch driver. Hey, it's got a 20-volt max lithium battery, so it's going to drill whatever you need just fine, and you're going to have plenty of power to drive in that screw. The dual chuck is the key because that's what lets you rotate from drill to driver without changing bits, and that's what's going to save you time. Like I said, you can take care of any project on your list and have plenty of time left over to kick back with a couple of ice-cold Broken Skull IPAs. And I almost forgot to mention the switch driver is also lightweight. That means it's great if you're going to be working on a ladder or installing something above your head. I need to send one to Ted Fowler. So go to WorkSwitchDriver.com. That's WorkSwitchDriver.com and use the promo code Steve at checkout to receive 10% off and free shipping. That's WorkSwitchDriver.com and use my promo code Steve to receive 10% off and free shipping. W power and save time. Get yourself a Work Switch Driver.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, check 1, 2. How you doing over, Michael? Can you hear me?
Doing great.
Doing a sound check. I'm coming to you from Marina Del Rey, California, down there right outside Columbus, Georgia. How you doing today? And before we get started, happy belated birthday, you old crustacean. You just turned 43 years old.
Brother, I'm telling you, I'm starting to feel it, man. I'm feeling like I come off the top rope a few times myself.
Now, at least you ain't had no turkeys chasing you with steel chairs out there, though.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying. And if I did, at least I'd have a 12 gauge to fight them off, man. Y'all just have to have your muscle and your wit to figure out how to avoid them.
Hey, man, Michael, I'm on the OutdoorChannel.com website, and here's a little summary of you. And I've already talked about you in the open of the show. But it says here, if only one person could be chosen as the face of the modern hunting industry, that person would likely be Michael Waddell. A veritable superstar in the outdoor world, Michael combines his hunting expertise with his easygoing personality and entertains fans of all ages across the country. Pretty good write-up. And here's the thing. You and I ran across each other, and we've seen each other in the past, just passing by here and there. But out there in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the Great American Outdoor Show, I was sitting there at a table there in a restaurant waiting on a flight, and there you was too. And I think if you'll remember, I was drinking a Bloody Mary for breakfast, and we hooked up and had a conversation. And I said, hey, man, I'd love to have you on the podcast sometime and just talk about hunting. So we exchanged information, and all this time it went by, and you shot me a text the other day about doing a podcast, and I said, man, outstanding. So it's good to have you on the show. And I want to talk about hunting, and I want to talk about strategies and setups, and it's turkey season, and I've never really done a whole lot of turkey season, so we'll talk about all things, and let's don't just talk about putting animals down, but I want to talk about just getting in the outdoors, because, Michael, real quickly, my story with hunting is this. I was born in '64 in Austin, Texas, and I had two brothers, and my mother got a divorce, and she moved us down to Victoria. So we was city slickers in Austin. And then she married Ken Williams, my stepdad, who I refer to as my dad. Well, my father was born in 1935. Michael, everybody that was born in 1935 that lived in a rural outdoor country area grew up hunting. And so our stepfather, who I consider my dad, got us boys out there, and I'll never forget my first hunting trip. I was probably 7, 8 years old. And I remember my dad walking through the woods with a rifle in his hand, and my brother Scott, who's 2 years older than me, was in front, and then there was me, and there was Kevin behind us, wrapping up the trail. He's a year younger than me. Michael, we stepped on every twig, stick, leaf, and I will always remember my father constantly turning around with his hand up to his mouth, be quiet. So, dude, that was over 40 years ago. And every year, there for a period for a while I was wrestling in WCW, I got out of the hunting. because I was too busy being on the road. I got reintroduced to it to Paul Orndorff. But I know you grew up right outside of Columbus, Georgia. Pretty much almost the same story. How'd you fall into the hunting world? And because it become a passion of yours that you've turned into a lifetime, that you've turned into a job?
Well, it's kind of like one of these things. First of all, Steve, let me tell you, of course, being able to be on this podcast means a lot to me because, first of all, I grew up chicken as a deadgum country, as cornbread, as a chicken coop pretty much. And so anyway, with that said, man, there ain't no way you can live in rural Georgia and not grow up watching wrestling and obviously hunting and fishing. And so, it's funny through my life and the opportunity I've had to work in this hunting industry, there's two major things, now three, that my fans and my kinfolk, they think I become a celebrity by doing. One was I had a chance to work with Waffle House on their menu one time because obviously they serve up a bunch of hunters when it comes to breakfast. And so my family thought that was cool. And then I thought the highlight was when I had a chance to hang out and meet Shawn Michaels. But now that I've been on the Stone Cold Steve Austin show, my friends and family finally believe that I've made it in this world. So that's pretty good. So thank you for having me on, at least at the family reunion. I know they're going to be high-fiving me, man. So that's cool. But when it comes to hunting, man, it's just like you was talking about how you grew up there and moved to Victoria. In my family, man, everybody hunted and fished. And it wasn't about just seeing what you could go out and shoot. It was because you lived on a lot of it for subsistence and you needed it. And, grew up, I wouldn't say poor, but definitely lower middle class to where everybody worked and everybody hunted from time to time. And, go to God's renewable resource there to the grocery store in the wild to make sure you had a little bit of venison for table fare. And not only you do that, you had a chance to spend a lot of time with your family trying to obtain that prime time ground round, for lack of better words. And so with that, hunting was just always a big part of my life, and never realized you could make a living promoting, hunting and fishing. And so it's been unbelievable, man. I've had a chance to hook up and meet a lot of different people out there, but at the end of it, you just meet people who truly understand what hunting is all about. We all got to eat. We all got to go to the grocery store. There's all kind of different peoples in this world, and most of us, I say, are carnivores. We like to eat whether it be a Big Mac or a pizza with some pepperoni on it, or maybe some brisket or some pulled pork if you're down there in Texas. And when you understand and grow up with a father like yours and mine that introduces you to it, you realize that if times get tough, we can be organic. We can be, in this world how it's gotten real green. We can still go to the wild, and we got these renewable resources out there that we can, provide for not only us, but for our family. So it's been a really cool blessing, man. It really has.
Hey, what'd you grow up hunting? Is it squirrels, rabbits? I know you're big into the turkeys. I want to talk about turkeys in a little bit because it is turkey season, but I know you had to do some deer hunting, but what was your basic thing that you pursued way back in the day?
Well, it's funny. I had an old pawpaw. He had an old 57 Chevrolet pickup truck, and he grew up farming, always made a little shine liquor, and literally I remember the chief of police, old black guy, used to come down and buy shine liquor for my pawpaw, and I didn't know what he was doing. Matter of fact, one day, Steve, I went down to my pawpaw's house, and this guy was country. Overalls, had an old Dexter tractor. Even when I was little, I remember he had a few mules. He had a mule he still plowed with a little single plow stock. I always had, tomatoes and squash and okra and, pink-eyed purple hull peas he grew. And so he was country, but he always made old moonshine back there, and he would sell it. And one day, I'd never forget, I must have been 9 years old. I come down there, and there was a few old guys laying out under a man and a woman. There was actually two men and a lady. They laid under a big old Georgia pine, and they had white T-shirts on, and they had blood all down their T-shirt. And so I took off running, freaking out, and I run down there, and I said, Pawpaw. And old Pawpaw Waddell was down there, had his overalls, shelling some butter beans. I remember it like yesterday. And I said, Pawpaw, somebody's been shot up there in your front yard. They passed out under the tree. I don't know if they'd been shot or what. And he said, no. He stuttered real bad. He said, no. They ain't been shot. He said, they drunk on that shine liquor. I've been having weed eat all day. He's been trading out that shine liquor to get them to weed eat down there around the pond. And so, I grew up, and then, later that day, he threw me in the truck, and we went fishing and checked a trot line and caught a few channel cat. He used to eat snapping turtles and stuff. And so he grew up just like you see a lot of these folks on TV now, whether it be the Robertson family or those guys on Swamp People. And so that was kind of the way I lived. And I started with probably squirrel, rabbit, and things like that. And I never started hunting for the sport of it. I started because I wanted to be part of that brotherhood of men who went out to try to provide some victuals for that night's meal that went along with the mashed potatoes, that went along with those butter beans he was shelling. And so it just grew, and it grew into a passion. It grew into where it got real scientific as I wanted to figure out how to better myself and to be, more of an asset to myself and my family when it come to hunting down these animals and these wild animals. And it become a challenge. And I realized it was a lot harder to chase down an old booger bottom Georgia whitetail than it would be to go to the meat department, and buy some round steak or maybe a can of Vienna sausage. So I started realizing at a young age, where this food came from. And I realized that turkey breast didn't grow beside a pear. It didn't grow beside an apple or a squash. Right. And so it just started from there, and it just led to every game and every different species around the world that I've tried to pursue and look into and understand more about the culture around it.
Did you ever retain that shine recipe that Papa was making?
You know what? I did, and I'm even scared to say that because I know you are worldwide. But yeah, if you're gonna know how to hunt and fish and be from booger bottom, you still got to know how to make moonshine and corn liquor. You got to.
Dude, every time I go to Georgia to film one of my shows for CMT, I'll get about 3 or 4 mason jars of shine, different kind of shine, passed to me, and I really enjoy it. So you might have to pass that recipe on to me one of these days.
It's redneck breakdancing fluids, what I call it. Because I'm telling you, you can be country as chicken coop, and you drank a little swig of that a few times, and get you one of them Broken Skull beers to chase it down with, and you will be moonwalking, son. You will be Michael Jackson, I can tell you.
Let's talk about how you got into the hunting industry, because you got into a lot of notoriety for your turkey culling skills, and it's more of a.
I got started through that.
Well, yeah. So, man, here's my one of my turkey hunting stories. I was over in Georgia. I was working for WCW, and my neighbor was a turkey hunter, and I basically just grew up hunting deer and dove hunting. So that's what we did. And so, man, a guy turned me on to turkey hunting, and he, showed me how to use diaphragm. So, Michael, explain to my audience what a diaphragm collar is that you put in your mouth. You could probably explain it better than I can.
Well, I even got a few laying around in case we need to kind of demonstrate a few.
I was going to get you to do that. Go ahead, but explain what one is.
Well, basically, the diaphragm call is a call that you put in your mouth, and it was basically started by using a leaf. The Indians used different styles or different kinds of leaves that grew on trees, and they could put it in their mouth, in the roof of their mouth, and force air between their tongue and this leaf and blow air out, and you can make basically the sound of a wild turkey. Obviously, they could make a lot of different sounds because obviously if you look at that Native American culture and even our first settlers, they depended a lot on these renewable resources. And so that actually evolved just like technology and anything else from, you got the mud hut, the grass hut, then you got the stick hut, and then next thing you know, you got the high-rise building. But same kind of goes with the diaphragm turkey call. So now it's basically a piece of aluminum. It's got different reeds in it, and it's basically made out of the same material that condom rubber is made with. And it's layered calls. They got different cuts. And by the way you push air across your tongue in between these reeds, it can give some of the most realistic sounds, and actually sound just as good or even better in some cases than a wild turkey. And people spend a lot of time mastering it, no different than a guitar or playing a jazz trumpet or whatever. And so it become an art, and that's kind of how I got started. I've become obsessed with turkey hunting, and I really wanted to get good at turkey calling and understand more about that language, because these turkeys have a true, very, interesting language that they use to communicate, male and female, all the way down to the poults and the young turkeys. And so, man, I was just intrigued by that. And obviously somebody's always trying to put one on a dinner table. The better you could call, the better you could communicate, the better chance you had for success. And so that's what I did, and I ended up getting to where I would call in turkey competitions and started winning pretty good, and had a chance to team up with a friend of mine named Ricky Joe Bishop, and they had a 2-man team world championship. They had a 2-man team grand national championship, and we had a chance to win those competitions a couple of times, and then I had a chance to win the Grand America Turkey Calling Championship. And so from there I had a chance to start meeting people like Bill Jordan, who owned Real Tree Camouflage, and I started guiding for him, and started meeting all kind of cool people, from celebrities to just people within this hunting space that were businessmen and had product out there. And it just started realizing to me then that, wow, this is such a cool place to be in and a cool industry to be in.
Well, and going back to that diaphragm turkey call, it's kind of I guess you would say it's almost a semicircle with a flat edge on the back where those reeds are, or those cuts are, and it fits in the roof of your mouth. If you listen to the show and you put your tongue into the roof of your mouth, that's where that diaphragm fits. So, my buddy turned me on to the diaphragm call. I'm out there practicing, trying to get good. I would have been special education level. So I wasn't very proficient with the diaphragm call. And I remember I started hacking or coughing one time, and I inhaled, and I almost swallowed that god dang diaphragm call. I started choking on that thing, Michael. And it got so bad I thought I was going to die. And it'd been something if I'd have choked to death on a damn diaphragm turkey call. And I said, well, you know what? I was stunning Steve back then. I said, how did old stunning Steve die? He goes, well, he was out there turkey calling. He choked on a diaphragm. And the bad news was that he died. The good news was while he was dying, he called up 15 gobblers.
That would have been it. That would have been, you'd have been on the cover of every wrestling magazine and Outdoor Life. Stunning Stone Cold Steve Austin.
So you hook up with Bill Jordan, and then you start getting on the TV shows. Were you just guided first? Because, I mean, you're kind of a jack of all trades. Did you learn editing and producing and all of that under his guise? You picked that all up? Because here's the thing about you. You're no college degree. You graduated from high school, I'm assuming.
Right. Barely,
and so but everything, all your hunting skills, self-taught, and then Bill Jordan, was he able to help you out with the business dynamic of doing what you do now?
He did, and I did. I started as a guide, and they had a bunch of outdoor writers come in, and they had me come guide, and the reason I had that option is because I had a couple titles, and so they could say, hey, man, I was 20 years old. This young kid, he just won the world championship, and, he'll take you hunting, and he'll get you a turkey. And, of course, they were giving me at the time $100 a day and free camouflage, and I had free turkey calls. So in my mind, I had already made it big time. I mean, I'm like, Donald Trump, there's nobody out there that's richer than me, because I'm like, this is all you need in life, free turkey calls and camo, and have a chance to make $100 a day hunting. And so from there, Realtree was growing. And back in the day, there was a bunch of TV shows that they had on a Sunday night that was on TNN, the Nashville network. And so they had Realtree Outdoors, and I think Jackie Bushman had a show, a couple other people.
Yeah.
And so they were growing, and they said, hey, man, do you think you could run a camera? And I said, well, I don't know much about it other than, I've videoed some of our stuff and some of the hunts I've been on around my house in Georgia. And they said, well, here's this camera. And it was an old Betacam. You probably remember them old Betacams,
yeah.
Big clunky cameras, and they were huge. And at the time, I was young and pretty good shape, so I felt like I could walk around with these big cameras pretty good. And so I immediately took that camera out and started videoing stuff. And from there, I started videoing some of these hunters that Bill Jordan and David Blanton would get me to guide. And they started paying me actually just to run a camera. So it went from a guide to a cameraman, but I would still go out there and yelp and call. And so that same year, the first year I had a chance to start working, I had a chance to start hunting and videoing with Bill Jordan and videoing all of his hunts. And all those hunts were going on TNN. So I didn't know anything about it, but I slowly started learning more about the TV process, the editing part of it, how to shoot stuff, how to shoot an interview, a little bit more of the technical aspects of it. They even sent me to school in Rockport, Maine for a week just to learn how to edit on nonlinear stuff. A lot of that's, I've forgotten about now, but back in the day, it meant a lot, and they offered me a full-time job. And so that was back in around 93, 94, and the rest has been history. And really, it's just been an open door, and the sky's been the limit as to what you can kind of go after. So it's been a really interesting ride for sure.
Well, when was it then Bill said, hey, man, this kid calls a hell of a turkey, runs a camera, but he's also got the gift of gab. He's got some charisma, good-looking young guy, and he decided to put you in front of the camera as an on-air personality.
That was the most amazing part, because I was really happy. I was making a living. I was having a chance to hunt with, heroes of mine. I remember Dale Earnhardt would come down every year, wow. Steve, and I was such a fan, just like I am of you and so many others out there in this industry and just the world. And I couldn't believe it, And this guy come down, and he said, I want to hunt with that young kid right there. I heard he's a world champion. And so immediately me and Dale go out there, start hunting turkeys.
Dude, how cool is that, hunting with Dale Earnhardt?
It was unbelievable. And as you know, as a 20-year-old kid, you're riding around in a pickup truck and you got the old Intimidator sitting beside you, and you pull up at a red light in Alabama, over here in Salem, Alabama, and you got a redneck with Earnhardt sticker sitting in there on a beat-up old Chevrolet ST, and he looks over, and there's Earnhardt, and he waves at him. It was like Jesus Christ was riding around with you. I mean, that was the same. And people would freak out. They'd run off the road and try to run us down to get Dale to sign something, and it was amazing. And for me, I was like a little youngin' in a candy store. I couldn't believe it. And to see him get a turkey and then every year come back and say, hey, man, I want to hump that Waddell kid. And so from there, just so many crazy things happened. But what I remember was when I would get a chance to hunt, especially with the true personalities, and one thing that's apparent, and I listen to a lot of your podcasts, when you got different personalities, whether it's the wrestlers or different celebrities, if that's what you want to call them, but in reality, celebrity is probably a shallow word to use. Their personalities, because what happens is they're very secure with who they are. In other words, they don't mind saying what they want to say. They laugh and they cut up. They don't take advantage of today because they laugh and cut up and want to have fun. And so usually that's what makes a personality. So the big thing it become apparent to me is a lot of these country singers, rock and roll guys, actors, actresses, wrestlers. I had a chance to hunt with a lot of wrestlers over the years, and so when I saw that, their personality shine through. And so always I had this little old high 8 camera. And as I got to be buddies with these personalities, we would always video just crazy stuff. We'd put the big television cameras up, and then we'd ride around on a high rack in Texas, and we would cut up and tell jokes. We'd have people like Mark Chestnut and Hank Williams Jr. They'd be playing the guitar, singing songs that nobody has heard, and be around the campfire laughing and cutting up. So when I would come home from a trip, there was nothing that would be incriminating, but I would show my friends. I was like, you want to see what Mark Chestnut is really like? Check this home video out. And they would laugh. Immediately they would go and they'd buy all his albums. And it's like, dude, that Chestnut is just like us, or this Dale Earnhardt dude. I loved him before based on what I saw him on racing, but now that I've seen this home video of your video, Michael, I realize he truly is just like us, except he can also drive a car real fast. So immediately I remember taking all that footage and taking it to David Blanton and Bill Jordan and said, guys, this is the true hit that we have, these personalities, not only the celebrities, but these people you meet, the cooks in camp, these different personalities you run into on the road, and these different people you run into when you're in Alaska and stuff. And so I said, we ought to make this show kind of behind the scenes. And David Blanton said we could call it Road Trip or Road Trips. And I said, well, I don't know who you host it, but it ain't gonna take somebody special to host it. It just needs somebody that can be secure and have fun. And I remember David Blanton and Bill Jordan said, well, why don't you host it, Michael? And we'll put it on this network called Outdoor Channel. And that gave me the opportunity to host that Realtree Road Trip. So I never had the goal or dream of being on TV. It just kind of happened, and those doors opened, and I had a chance to start doing that. And immediately that recipe kind of hit home, and I bonded some really good friendships with a lot of different celebrities and just your average Joes that just were walking the streets that were great hunters, great funny guys, and kind of the rest is history. And we've kind of used that recipe to kind of show that everybody's really the same. We just all have different talents, but at the end of it, we love to be outdoors and to be secure, to hunt and fish, and just to enjoy our times with our family and friends.
When you saw Dale Earnhardt right before a race, he'd always have those black sunglasses on and never would crack a smile. And like you said, they called him the Intimidator, and he was one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. How was he at the hunting camp? Was he laid back? Was he like to just laugh and joke? Was he a serious guy?
He was. He was really laid back by nature and really liked to laugh. And he had so many little, quirks. I remember one thing about Dale, he would not, and he wouldn't let nobody else in camp drink a beer out of an aluminum can, because he said that causes cancer. Pour that thing in a Dixie cup. He said you need to drink it out of plastic or a glass, and I never forget that. And the other thing I remember about Dale, he was always kind. He always was a big tipper. He would go to the cooks and always hand them, $200 to $500. And even though I worked at Realtree, I never forget, he would say, hey, take his $200 and go buy yourself something with it. Go buy your family something with it. And I was like, Dale, I work for Realtree. You're here as our guest. He said, yeah, but you a broke son of a bitch. You need to go buy yourself something. And he was just so kind and generous, but then he was so intense. Like when it come to hunting, I mean, he was insane. He had to get the biggest. He wanted to shoot the biggest. It was like he was running Talladega,
Yeah.
And so, but the biggest thing I remember is he was just like, cousins I grew up with in rural Georgia, or maybe somebody you would have grew up with in, Victoria, Texas. Just a laid back old redneck that could drive a car, and had a great charisma and was an immense amount of fun, but he was very competitive, overall, but just a super cool guy, man. I mean, it really hurt me when he passed away. I'm telling you, it really took, it made me not even want to turn on NASCAR for a little while.
It took the wind out of a lot of people's sails. I mean, because that guy, he was a guy that crossed over. First of all, he was the biggest star in NASCAR, but I mean, he crossed over in the mainstream. So even if you didn't watch NASCAR, you knew who Dale Earnhardt was.
Oh, you did. And I'll tell you a story, Steve, that's an amazing. And I hadn't told this story much outside of the hunting industry. But Dale was always a Remington firearms guy. He loved Remington rifles. He worked with them on the side of his car, along with Richard Childress and stuff. And so at the time, Thompson Center had come out with these new, really technology-driven muzzleloaders. And so I had one. I bought one through my contacts at Realtree. I'm videoing Dale in Iowa, and it was the year before this crash. And he had this old shotgun. And well, anyway, he didn't have a good scope on it, and we couldn't get it to zeroed in. I said, Dale, just take my Thompson Center. He said, man, I'm not shooting that Thompson Center. You can just put it up. And so, long story short, I went out. He shot and missed 2 different deer with this Remington gun, not because of the shotgun, but because
couldn't get it dialed in.
He couldn't get it dialed in, had a bad scope. So he had to leave and do a big appearance for NASCAR, and he was coming back to hunt with our friends Don Kiske. And I left my gun with Don Kiske, and I told Dale, I said, Dale, if you get a chance to come back, you're only going to have 2 days to hunt. Please take my gun. And this is taboo in our industry, but even if you have to shoot cutaways, as we would call it, with that Remington, my gun is dialed on, man. I paid my money with it. I made sure it's sighted in. 150 grains of Pyrex powder with this 250 grains Sabot. You're going to be successful. Well, needless to say, I said, but look, if you use my gun and you shoot it, make sure you clean it. Take these swabs and this gun cleaning product and clean that gun for me. I'll do it, Waddell. Don't worry about it. But I ain't going to shoot it no way. But if I do, I'll clean it. Long story short, he goes out, he shoots this deer, big Iowa buck, his last buck on video, and he shoots it, and he uses my gun. So Don Kiske calls, man, Dale used your gun. I said, awesome. I said, you remember him cleaning it? He said, no, I don't know. He said he took it with him on his plane, on his jet. And I said, okay. So immediately I start calling Dale, and this is right before, this is into December, getting close to the Daytona race. I'm calling him all the time, Steve. I'm like, man, Dale, send my gun back, send my gun. I mean, and all I knew is I was still this broke cameraman that was trying to guide a little bit for Realtree that needed my Thompson Center gun back. I done paid $400 for this thing. I wanted it back. And so I never could get in touch with him. I mean, he just wouldn't call me back. So needless to say, I finally got in touch with his secretary. She said, Michael, let me run Dale down. I'll see if I can't get you your gun back. She called me back about 3 or 4 days. She says, Michael, she called David Blanton and let him know. Said, look, I got your gun. Dale finally got it back, and he's sending it back. And don't you know, this gun came exactly a week before the Daytona race. So all the way from December to February, I've been working to get this gun back. It comes back. I opened the box, and you couldn't have poured mortar mix. I mean, Sacrete concrete. It was just, he never cleaned that gun. It was nasty and dirty, and it was one of the last shots he actually killed a deer with. And I was so mad at Dale. I told Kerry Earnhardt about this. I was so mad. I went into David Blanton's office in Realtree's, Bill Jordan. I said, I am mad. I said, he's got more money than anything. And I said, he can't even take care of my gun. And I was so mad. Needless to say, that fateful day in Daytona, he got killed in that wreck. And to this day, I got it in my gun safe. It's one of the last deer Dale ever killed. And that mortar mix is that last shot that he took that buck. And so that's something that's so special to me now. What turned into something I was mad about because he ruined my gun, I can tell my kids, and now I got kids, and my wife about this story. And so I don't think it was his last year. I think he went on to get him a buck somewhere in Texas. But that's a cool deal for me that the Waddell family always have that old gun. And not only that, Steve, he had lost one of the screws, so he took some duct tape and just taped my forearm back on my gun. I mean, he basically ruined it. It was like it was a rental car or something, you know. It's a pretty cool story about Dale Earnhardt.
Hey, I got a chance. I was watching YouTube. I was watching some of the Tree Roadtrips, and it's you guys going down the road, and it was one of the episodes where y'all took your wives with you. It was a great episode. And then in another episode, because it was the first time they had, well, the one had been away from a mall, as the caption would read. There's a little bit of humor there. But there was another episode where you took Blake Shelton out there, and of course, you know, Blake Shelton's blown up real big right now. He's everywhere, but back in he was still cutting his teeth and coming on up. Boy, I tell you what, I got a good dose of him. That guy's hilarious. Ended up taking a buck in Kansas. I think you had hunted the stand for 4 or 5 days. It was your usual protocol. You'd, hunt for 4 or 5 days, and then someone else would take that stand. And as soon as they took that stand, I'll be danged if they didn't shoot something. And here comes a nice buck, and boy, he doesn't go anywhere. He just drops that buck. He rolls over. Yeah, but Blake Shelton looks like he's a hilarious guy to hang around with. What a personality.
He is. He's another one of those guys that's just down to earth, and obviously his personality is what shines through, man. He's goofy, he's funny, he don't really take anything real serious, and he's laughing all the time, and it's funny. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, Blake's went Hollywood," but he's far from it, man. He'll still be on that old tractor out there, plowing up something and moving some dirt, in his front end loader, and so it's funny, those routes that you make. I don't think it matters no matter where life takes you. You always seem to find your way back to those roots, and I think we've all seen that. And old Blake's no different.
Hey, man, let's take a little break here, Michael. Take a pause for the cause. The sponsors keep the show on air for free. I want to come back after the break. Everybody's got to have a gimmick. Mine was Stone Cold Steve Austin. You come up with the Bone Collector. Coming right back with Michael Waddell. We're going to talk about how he came up with the Bone Collector and his website and his show, Bone Collector, on Outdoor Channel. Hang in there. We'll be right back. Hey, it ain't nothing better than working for yourself and being your own boss. So if you have a great idea just waiting to make money, let Weebly.com help you make it a reality. Weebly.com/Austin will help you create your own professional quality website, blog, or online store and make you look like a dang genius web designer and technology guru in the process. You see, Weebly has a wide variety of professionally designed mobile-friendly themes to choose from. You just pick a theme and then you just drag and drop your content to build and publish your website. Yeah. It really is that easy, and it's that fast. And you can update and change your site anytime on any device, and you can do it right from your phone. See, that's the best part. Weebly has an app that lets you update your site, add more content, and check your online store orders right from your phone no matter where you are. It's instant access, so you can take care of business anytime you need to. You don't have to be at a desk or in an office to work on your website. Creating a fantastic website shouldn't get in the way of your dreams. Join the over 30 million people who are already dreaming big with Weebly. Get started today for free at Weebly.com/Austin. That's Weebly.com/Austin. Let me spell it out for you. WEEBLY.com/Austin. All right, Michael, here we go again. Bone Collector. I got a neighbor. He's 2.5 miles down the road from me. He's got a 5,000-acre place. He's got some big deer. And I go over there, and he'd say, "God dang, Steve, look at that buck." He goes, "That's a lot of bone up on that head. That's a lot of bone up on that head." And so anyway, an antler, a deer antler, we call them horns, but it's not truly a horn because a horn is like a cow horn. They never drop those. An antler shed every year. But let's talk about the marketing part. And let's talk about your show, The Bone Collector. But how did you come up with that? Because that's a great gimmick. It's a great name. How did you come up with that? And did you trademark it? What's the story?
Well, I did trademark it, and here's the story on it. So, coming out of when I started, basically left and become independent of Realtree. Obviously, I never left the Realtree family. I still stayed with Bill Jordan. But in order to take advantage of, say, an endorsement or an appearance, or basically just have a business, I had to leave full-time employment at Realtree Camouflage, and so one of the first things that companies wanted to do, they wanted to create these Michael Waddell series of products. And again, keep in mind, I've always been a fan of these things in life. Call it NASCAR, call it wrestling, and you're right. Stone Cold, you got Diamond Dallas Page, you got The Rock, you got all these people in the NASCAR, you got the Intimidator, and you got these nicknames. And of course, it seems like everybody in our culture, this country and simple, call it redneck, we got to have some kind of nickname. And so, I was always saying something about half stupid or goofy on the show, especially after I had some success in the field, and so I never forget all these companies want to do these Michael Waddell products, and I'm thinking, man, that is so boring. I said, first of all, the man ego has an immense amount of ego. Who wants, necessarily a Michael Waddell gun? You know what I mean? Maybe I could design something and be a signature series. I said, I wish we could call it something cool, and so Thompson Center, I was with Greg Ritz out on the gun range, and we had been working on this gun, on this Triumph frame that they had come up with, and it was going to be a fairly inexpensive frame, but it was delivering some amazing accuracy and just the way it come together and the cleaning of this muzzleloader. And so they was talking about calling it the Michael Waddell edition. I said, man, I wish we could call it something cool. And I said, I don't know what we call it. So I'm shooting this gun. Well, we quickly come up with a dose of powder and a shot that's just really making this gun just shooting like crazy. And it's so accurate. And I looked at Greg Ritz. I said, man, I don't know what we call this gun, but it's going to be a bone collector. And when I said that, I said, man, that's what we call it. And he said, yeah, I love it. And so I get on the plane, go home from that trip. And I was so anxious to get to land so I could call Greg. I said, Greg, look, if you don't mind, I'd like to trademark that myself. I still want to call this gun the Bone Collector, but I'd like to trademark that, and I'd like to potentially do a show. Now, with the word Bone Collector, a lot of people, especially the anti-hunting community, could look at that as, that's pretty morbid, it's pretty weird, it's pretty different, but from a marketing standpoint of it, it was just a cool name that got people's attention. You know, what is Bone Collector? I mean, what is this? And so from there, obviously, if you're going to hunt, no matter what you hunt, you got to collect. You got to take something home, harvest, kill, or whatever. But you got to take it home, put it in your truck, and as Ted Nugent say, you got to kill it before you grill it. And so, with that said, you know, we just kind of took that and run with it, and quickly came up with a logo. And it was like the first stab at a logo. That's what we come up with. But that's the story of how Bone Collector got started. It turned into a TV show. It turned into a brand.
Hey, man, let's talk about your TV shows with the Tree Roadtrips. That's still going on?
It is. Tree Roadtrips is still going on. I'm actually working with Bill Jordan Steele and David Blanton, all the guys at Tree. Actually, T-Bone Turner, the kind of the big guy, who actually the heavy one, he's still helping us with road trips, and Nick Munt from South Dakota and Wyoming, he's still helping out too.
Okay, tell me about your schedule here, because you're doing the Bone Collector, you got the Tree Roadtrips, and tell me about how many days it takes to film an episode. Because in my world, trying not to film Broken Skull Challenge or Redneck Island, you usually look about 2 days per episode, and man, we're getting it out there. So you were telling me before we started talking, I mean, you're looking at about 7 to 10 days per ep.
That's correct. And
that's a lot of time goes into, what are y'all, 30, 60-minute show?
It's a 30-minute show, and we end up spending anywhere at minimal maybe a 5-day.
Yeah.
But typically we had about 7 to 10 days in field with 2 to 4 cameras in the field, and everything we do when it comes to hunting is in fair chase situations. And so with that, it definitely can become a challenge. And there's sometimes, Steve, we'll go out there and we might spend 7 days and literally come away with nothing but some pretty good jokes and some pretty big campfires and a couple of country music songs that we sang around a campfire, and some good foods and a couple of quesadillas that we ate too many of. And so, if the animals ain't moving or the fish ain't biting, and 98% of what we do is completely hunting. And so it makes it tough, but it actually makes it a cool challenge. So when it's all said and done, we're on the road about half the year. We end up creating around 40 to 45 brand new original episodes a year, and all of those episodes rerun as well. So it's a lot of
so how do you go about scheduling your year? Because I know you like to hunt Texas, I know you love Kansas, you're from Georgia, but you go all over the United States. How do you go about booking that? Do you have, I've got this big calendar, it's on my wall, it covers 16 and 17, and I write everything I'm doing in there. How do you go about booking and planning your hunts with all these outfitters? I know you've been doing this a while, but so what's the strategy as far as maintaining some kind of logistics from one place to the next?
Well, one is you got to understand what the animals are doing different times of year and what it is you want to hunt. And so we have our immediate group, and then we also have, friends that we meet on the road. Prime example is, one of my goals, I've always wanted to do a hunt with you. And so if you say, man, Michael, I'm wide open and I'm busy, man, I'd love to share camp with you, somewhere, but I got this and going on. And you say, but you know what, that first week in December, I'm pretty free. I might have a couple days, and so obviously what I try to do from there is I'll just kind of get some different names, some different people we think can add some value to the show, and vice versa. We can kind of take them on a cool adventure that they would truly enjoy. And the whole goal is not business, but when we leave, we're going to leave better friends than we were just business opportunities to kind of highlight what we do on each other's networks or shows. But so I take all that into account, and I might say, well, Steve, if you got the first week in December, as you know, you grew up in Texas, man, that's a heck of a week in Texas. I think I can line it up. I know you only got, 2 or 3 days maybe you can hunt, but we'll come in, me and Nick Munna come in, we'll scout it out, I got a friend over here. There's a couple outfitters over here. So we lay it all out. And then from there, we go to, depending on who the guest is, depending on what we're doing, we'll lay it out and put everything into it as far as the travel, the expense, and try to make sure that when we go, that at the end of the day, we try to make sure that camp has such a laid-back, fun environment, whether it be you that's hunting there or whether it be a wounded warrior and or just maybe a first-time mom who maybe didn't believe in hunting, that we want to take her and her kid hunting for the first time. We want to make it a mini vacation to where it's all exclusive. When you come behind you, the gates are locked and you can relax, you can enjoy yourself, and you can just completely get from it what you want, whether it's bring your family, whether it's bring your kids and your wife. And we just make it like a big family reunion and make it like the hunting trip that we have saved up for all our life to go on. So that's how we approach it. And then we obviously have a couple really good camera guys that come and document the hunts and the time around the camp. So it's not scripted, and it takes a lot of time. So really we draw from our experience of what we know about different areas of North America and different time frames. It's going to be really good, and different challenges of what people might be wanting our guests. I've talked to Brett Favre a good bit this past year. We was talking about we really want to go on a hunt together. Got a couple different people that I've met from wounded warriors that really want to go do something. So it all varies. And some people say, man, I want to go on an elk hunt, and I want it to be a challenge. I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be tough, but I want to hunt out of a tent camp. So we'll take that in mind. And then a lot of times it might be just a kid that don't care if he ever even sees a turkey. He just wants to spend time around the camp, and maybe he's got a father that's absent, that he just wants somebody to give him some nurture and show him some attention. So there's so many things we take into account, and we lay it out and we put those trips together, buy airplane tickets and do all the details. And I handle all that myself, along with a couple people there at the office that help me kind of with the details of that. So
talk about the pressure of putting something on the ground, and it's got to be the right thing that's on the ground. I was watching one of your episodes. I believe it was Montana. I can't remember some wagon ranch. It was I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, you were hunting elk and you were bow hunting, and boy, y'all would see a couple, but you just couldn't get in range. I think a couple that came in range were just young bulls, and you passed on them. And it was real hot, so the bulls would stop bugling. They were laying down, weren't cooperating, so to speak. So you end up going back with a rifle. So tell me about the pressure of, like you said, sometimes you come back with a couple of jokes and some songs, but not so much. But you're trying to get success, but nothing's guaranteed when you're hunting.
Well, and that's exactly right. It's no different than anything else. I mean, it's almost like if we don't come back with a successful show in filling a tag, or providing somebody with a true hunting opportunity that they can see unfold on camera, it's almost like having a wrestling match, but nobody wrestles. And so it is pressure. And so with that, what we try to do is we put a lot more pressure on us and our immediate crew to make shots that maybe we don't expect necessarily our guests to make. I mean, if I'm bow hunting, obviously I feel like if that's what I do every day for a living, then if a deer steps out at 50, 60 yards, and I'm working with Bush and L, and they gave me a rangefinder, and I got a Hoyt bow that'll shoot over 300 feet per second, and good broadheads, then I've got to put this deer on the ground when he gives me an opportunity to present a shot. And so, you don't want to hear me make a bunch of excuses, nor does the world. When you was right in your heyday of wrestling, they didn't want to see you trip off the top rope. They want to see Stone Cold Steve Austin give him the stunner, by God, and send him on to the mat and pin him down. And I think that we take that part serious, but it becomes pressure, but we try not to let it affect us, because we know that if we not having fun doing it, then who in the world is going to want to buy a hunting license? What mom or what kid is going to say, man, I'm not going to go to Six Flags. Instead, I'm going to go down to Victoria, Texas, and I'm going to try to find out where I can go take my kid turkey hunting. So it's kind of a fine line of how you do that to make sure that you're serious about it. And obviously we take a lot of pride and ethics and making sure we can make a good shot, because it's serious when you're trying to put something, one of God's renewable resource on your dinner table. You obviously want to be ethical, and it's a pretty serious venture when you do that. But at the same time, we can't continually be screwing up and goofing off and not being successful, because then people's like, man, this is a joke. They're pretty funny, but them boys don't know nothing about hunting. So it's a fine line of what you do and how you do it.
All right, got to take a minute here to say thanks for supporting all the great sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, and that includes my buddy Diamond Dallas Page, DDP Yoga, and his new DDP Yoga Now app. You can download DDP's great new app at iTunes or the Google Play Store, and Dallas has thought of everything with this app. He's got all the workouts on it, and you can even do live workouts from the DDP Yoga Performance Center in Georgia. How's that? He's got recipes, nutrition tips, and cooking demonstrations so you can learn how to prepare healthier meals for yourself. Hello. He's even got a rewards program built in so that the more yoga you do, the more points you earn. And then you can redeem those points for some great DDP Yoga merch and other prizes. And right now, you can get 3 free months of the DDP Yoga Now app when you buy the DDP Yoga program at ddpyoga.com/Austin. Yeah, that's right. Dallas is giving all you guys a special deal. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to take advantage of it. As Dallas always says, all you have to do to start living a healthy life is commit to the program. So get started now at ddpyoga.com/Austin. All right, well, let's shift gears here, Michael. It's turkey season right now down there in South Texas, probably everywhere, I guess. I would claim to be pretty knowledgeable about the turkey.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got some true or false questions for you. You ready for these?
I'm ready. I'm nervous, but I'm ready.
We will get these questions out of the way, and then I want to talk to get you to use your calls or something like that. And dude, that one time after I choked on that diaphragm call, I just went to a call box. I never put another diaphragm reed in my mouth again. But anyway, here's a couple true-false questions for you, Michael, just to see exactly how knowledgeable you are, because I've been doing my research, brother, and I hope you got a towel to wipe the sweat off your forehead. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Michael, true or false? The American turkey is a direct descendant of the prehistoric bird, the pterodactyl.
I'd have to say false.
Yeah, that is actually true.
It is?
No, I'm kidding. It's false.
Man, I wouldn't have known that. I was just guessing. At least I got 50-50 chance.
Hey, dude, I'm a little bit of a bullshit artist myself. Here we go. In the United States, there are 7 different turkeys.
No, that'd be false.
Correct. Name the 4 turkeys. Or 5, depending.
Yeah, actually, there's 5 if you want to go down to Mexico. You got your Eastern wild turkey. You got your Osceola down in Florida. You got your Rio Grande, which lives happily and proudly throwing a Texas flag up down there. And that's a Rio Grande in Texas, and of course, across parts of Oklahoma. Then you got your Merriam turkey, which is your kind of white fan that lives out in the western part of the world. Then, of course, that's the Gould turkey that lives in Mexico that speaks Spanish.
You are correct, sir. All right, true or false? Turkeys are the only bird that is able to outrun an ostrich.
Huh. That would say, I was wondering, I thought you was going to say a turkey is the only animal that presents the poacher the opportunity to outrun the game warden if caught across the property line. But I would say true. I would think a turkey could just about outrun a turkey or come close to it.
I just made that one up. There ain't no way a turkey gonna outrun an ostrich in them long ass legs.
It's kind of like Edwin Moses of the turkey.
I'm gonna give you a fail on that one. Here's one. I'm gonna give you a chance to redeem yourself. Don't feel bad. Turkeys are carnivorous birds, but will eat grass to survive if they have to.
That is true.
It is?
I would say a turkey will definitely eat a lizard. They'll eat a snake, but a turkey will eat anything. Look here, I know a lot of country folks don't eat a turkey or a chicken because they know they'll eat absolutely about anything. I wouldn't say they're carnivorous to the point where they're going to sit there and eat roast beef. But let me tell you something. You let a grasshopper, you let a ladybug or cricket, or you let anything out there that's crawling, even little small snakes, they will eat them. So I don't know if that makes them carnivorous, but I know they're animals that will eat on opportunity.
Well, hell, I just made up a BS question, but you gave a damn good answer. I wasn't even taking that into consideration because I didn't exactly know what they ate. So all right, you're going to pass the test on that one. I got a few more here, Michael.
All right.
Each year, turkeys migrate and fly south in a V formation to South Beach to avoid cold weather.
That would be false.
All right, 2 more. Domestic turkeys can be house trained and learn to speak just like a parrot.
That would be incorrect. That's false.
Michael, you could have said that was just straight up BS. Here's one for you, the last one. In 2002, on Thanksgiving Day, there was a shortage in the United States of butterball turkeys because a new employee had forgotten to butter the balls.
That's got to be true. 'Cause if you ain't buttering them balls, son, you ain't living in life. I know it's a family show, but
all right. Michael, here's the thing. Down at the Broken Skull Ranch in South Texas, I got the Nueces River as my southern border. One time I was out on a deer stand right down there by that river, and literally I stopped counting. The corn feeder went off, and these turkeys just come out of the roost and got down on the ground, started walking down the road. I got my place mowed up pretty good. I stopped counting at 150 birds. It was one of the coolest, and that's a true story, damnedest things I'd ever seen in my life. Just that sun was coming up and just kind of shimmering on the backs and shoulders of those birds as they walked towards that corn feeder. They ate up my corn in about 5 minutes and then just kept walking on down the road. And then we had a big flood come in right before the drought hit, and everything down there was flooded, and it just ran them turkeys off, and my ranch ain't been the same since. So if you were to come out to the Broken Skull Ranch, and I would just say, hey, Michael, I'm turning you loose. Here's 2,000 acres. It's shaped like a rectangle. How are you going to go out there? What's going to be your approach to set up on a piece of land that you've never been on?
Well, one is what you just described, too, is Mother Nature's fury. I mean, a lot of people think it's, the hunters that take wildlife out, but Mother Nature has a sure enough fierce way to deal with nature and deal with the wildlife. And as you just talked about, turkeys need water, but they don't need that much water. And when you have that much water comes in, it completely just tears down all their nesting habitat and takes down so much. So even though those turkeys that are living there will make it through it, it decimates the next year's poult hatch. And so that's one reason you'll have to recover after a big time, flood like that. But the number one thing I would do, every terrain offers a little different situation. In Texas, in your part of the country, where sometimes certain areas of Texas, the trees are sparse, you got to find those rivers and those big creek bottoms where those either bigger mesquite or live oaks. That's where all the turkeys always are going to roost. And so, number one, you can eliminate a lot of that low-lying stuff where turkeys are going to start, at daylight. And a good thing about a turkey, they're going to go to roost, and it's just a matter of establishing where you can hear that turkey on roost. So in a place like yours, I would imagine you got a lot of mesquite flat and different areas, and then along those river bottoms, you got some pretty big live oak trees. So all your turkeys are going to be down there in those bigger live oak trees when it cracks daylight. And so from that, obviously during the springtime, you can manipulate a turkey because he is hungry and he's sexually frustrated. He has one time a year that he can breed. And so he's listening to every little sound that the hen turkey makes. He's listening to the other males, the other mall studs or bar goers that's around there trying to, breed these hens. And a turkey is just the ultimate, for lack of better words, peckerhead guy who is trying to breed everything. And here's something brutal about the turkeys. Most of the time, if you see, and I'm sure you've seen this spring here, you might see 2 or 3 gobblers strutting together, and they're courting, let's just say 5 or 6 hens. Well, most of the time, they're out of the same brood, and they'll be brothers. They'll definitely be kin. Most of the time, if one of those turkeys trip, fall, or get shot and start flopping, which that flopping means they're wounded, they're hurt, the other 2 turkeys will immediately, they don't call 911, they don't immediately start giving mouth to meth. They will sit there and peck the eyeballs out of their brother to make sure that just gives them all those 5 turkeys to breed. Or maybe it's a little bit more around the corn feeder. And so it's one thing to realize Mother Nature is pretty darn brutal. So when you realize that, you first have to get past, the polar bear commercials where these polar bears are loving up on each other and realize that you're dealing with something that is very opportunistic. They're very selfish in their desires to eat, to breed. And so when you take that in mind and you're trying to put one of these true wild organic turkeys on your Thanksgiving table, then you got to realize that you have to be very sexual in your calling because you're manipulating something that means a lot to him. He wakes up and he is fired up. He's ready to come in. He doesn't have to be loyal to any wife or girlfriend. He has to not be honored to any, father or mother. He is trying to breed everything. And so when you do that, you're going to use everything you can, and also what he thinks he wants to go in a direction he thinks is safe. In that case, based on what you just said, those senderos out in Texas, they like to walk those senderos. They know where food sources are, like these corn feeders or maybe food plots. So you want to think that when a turkey's gobbling, you want to put yourself in between him and those food sources and obviously give him a little bit of incentive and some sexy talk, and so many times you can manipulate that.
Tell me about the turkey going up to roost. Just because, like I said, dude, I've been probably turkey hunting 3 or 4 times, but after watching so many videos on YouTube, it's something I'm going to get into a lot more than I have been. It just seems like I've always got a show in production or whatever, but enough excuses about that. But so why does the turkey at nighttime go up to roost? Is that just for safety's sake, to get off the ground?
It is. It's just like any kind of chicken or whatever. They like to get off the ground. Turkey is a preyed upon item from, coyotes, bobcats, and obviously Texas has a lot of predators, but all across this country it does. Same with chickens and different other, poultry type, birds or whatever. And so they fly up, not number one out of habit, but also mainly for safety. The turkeys will, and so they can go up there. They roost and they can sleep basically in the trees, and they're basically protected from anything that would want to come after them. Now, keep in mind, the flip side of that, when these hens get bred, they have to nest on the ground. They have to stay on that nest. So that's when these turkeys are most vulnerable, when they're nesting, and you got all these other nest predators like coons, raccoons, bobcats, and coyotes. Now they've got the opportunity to come and not necessarily try to eat that hen, but to eat that nest of eggs, from chickens, snakes, to you name it. There's a lot of different things that are after that same resource.
So if you get out there and you get you set up, are you going to start with a locator call to try to get a response, or what's going to be your start?
Well, yeah, you do a lot of times. In Texas it's cool because turkeys gobble a lot, and say in Texas, but across North America in different species you might hunt. Yeah, they are something you can get fired up with different other animal noises like a barred owl or crow. A lot of times in the morning I'll just give one single hoot from a barred owl. Might sound like this. Ooh! Or you might say, oh, 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 oh. And a lot of times when they hear that, they're very territorial. So it's no different than us being out there, go off our front porch to take a leak, and we're just cracking our eyes open and not even got our coffee. And all of a sudden, some dudes or something's yelling at us like, hey!
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be like, hey, boy! We're going to holler back like, what you doing? And so it's a territorial thing. They're so geared up, they're so sexually charged that any loud noise they're going to immediately gobble at. It's called a shock gobble. And so from there you'll understand where they're at, and then you can go in and set within 100 yards a lot of times and start at that point using your hen call, because that's the female, and you're trying to get this gobbler to reverse nature because you want that gobbler to leave prospective hens to come to this promise that is so much better, which obviously, if you think about it, it gets us men in a lot of trouble too. You got where we're supposed to be, and you got what sounds like we should be. And so, guess what? Typically, in most cases, that's when you get, popped right upside your head. And that's what happens a lot of times in the turkey woods. But it's really hard to reverse that nature because so many times these gobblers, they gobble, and they're just sitting there, and they're gobbling, and they're attracting hens. The hens are called, the gobbler gobbles, the hen goes to them to be bred. So it's a pretty chauvinistic world that these turkeys live in. So it's really cool to be able to use a hen call. And that's why I think every woman alive should turkey hunt, because it proves that the woman holds the key to the man, and they're in control when it gets down to it, even though in some situations the good Lord made it to where this man becomes this big dog, especially in nature. But when you can sit there and you can reverse nature and make this turkey come strutting in to the unknown, that's when you understand the power of the ladies.
So tell me about the different sounds that the turkeys make, because, just looking at the computer, I got yelps, clucks, cuts, cackles, purrs, a gobble, a spitting and drumming, a putt, a kiki run. I was watching, some of the turkey calling contest on YouTube, and it's just amazing to watch these guys on stage, and the judge will call out the call, and he'll go through it. So, what's the psychology and the strategy behind what sounds you choose to make when you're trying to bring in that gobbler?
Well, the spring time of year is when the romance starts, and that's when the breeding is. So there's a whole different type of language you're going to use during the spring than you would, let's just say, if you hunt turkeys in the fall. But you have a lot of basic fundamental phrases and things that are said that are throughout the year. But for the spring of the year, there's only a handful of calls that sometimes you need to use to manipulate that turkey to gobble, or to prove to them that you basically are looking for a sexual encounter. And so it's a very complex language. There are so many different sounds that a hen turkey will make, and there's a whole nother vocabulary of the male turkey or the gobbler. But for the most part, a hunter or somebody seeking to basically hunt a turkey just really needs to learn to master certain calls in the hen vocabulary. You got a cluck, which is a basic sounding note, and I got a call. I'll demonstrate some of that. And then you got your yelping of a hen. And then the cool thing, it's just like anything else. You can learn to put different inflections and different excitement in it based on what you're trying to tell that gobbler. There's a difference in there's a difference if your wife says, honey, come to bed, it's getting late. Big difference than if your wife says, honey, and Lord, I hate to even try to, mimic that, but if your honey says, honey, really come on to bed right now, I promise you, you're going to be excited if you come to bed right now. So immediately, one is like, oh, she's ready to watch her favorite episode of Nashville and, go on and get to sleep and that's it. And the other one is, baby, TV ain't on, but I'm turned on, come to bed. And so obviously there's different ways you can check a gobbler's temperature by what you say, the way you inflect it. So you can say the same thing, but it's a different inflection.
So give me a couple of sounds over there that you would use to get that gobbler's attention, and tell me what you're doing.
So here's your basic clucks and yelps that you might use. A cluck being a simple call that a hen uses just to kind of let other turkeys know they're in the area, and they do it involuntarily sometimes just as they're walking and feeding. It sounds like this. You hear that sound?
Yeah.
Just like chickens, they might be in the yard scratching around, clucking, maybe purring. But probably the most common sound that a turkey will make is your cluck and your yelp. And a yelp is something like this. That's a very simple hen yelp, so a very laid back. That is kind of what's up, how you doing. But let's just say this, Steve. Maybe I make that call and the turkey gobbles. A lot of times the way I respond, or in the wild, the way a hen will respond, she immediately puts a different inflection on it that puts a little bit more yearning. It might sound more like this. So immediately, same call, but a complete different inflection that basically says, I'm ready to go, I'm serious. It could be that she's talking to the other hen turkeys to say, hey, you better get out of my territory. This is my area. This is my home. These are my men. So it becomes really intriguing the more you spend time out there in Mother Nature and you hear this vocabulary, and it makes it really cool. And as you get to talking and you're realizing what they're saying, you can sit there, and it's no different than when you first, got that Rosetta Stone and you're trying to talk Spanish down in Mexico. You were sitting here talking a different language that was that's not really got any books about, that you can sit there and talk to wildlife and actually talk to them and tell them what you want to hear. You can hear what they got to say, and you can bring them in or get closer to them by that communication. And that is really cool. That's pretty intense.
Well, two questions. When you just made that last sound, were you using a call box or were you using a diaphragm?
That was a diaphragm. And the way the diaphragms work, man, they're the hardest to use, but when you can master them, you can make some unbelievable good sounding turkey calls. It's just very realistic. There's just thousands of different cuts and layers of latex that they use to build these calls. And so definitely the hardest to use, but a good box call or a slate call, these friction type calls, they're really good too.
Okay, here's a stupid question, but if you said some of these hens are almost territorial, or that's their area that they want to breed, do hens ever get in a fight, or do the gobblers ever get in a fight? Because as I was watching these videos, a couple of gobblers come strutting in, full strut, got their chest out, the feathers up. Are they just showing off? Do these animals fight? Because I ain't never seen two turkeys fight.
Man, they do. They fight to the point, and they are truly trying to kill each other. They're not a friendly fight, and they're ever going to sit down at the end of that fight and hopefully have a beer together. They hate each other. And it's all because of greed, and it changes. It completely changes. You can have a group of turkeys that are all friends, early in January, February, but when photoperiodism happens, a scientific return which lets the nature know that it's their time to breed. Obviously, we humans don't have that. All of a sudden, their desire to breed becomes apparent, and so whatever they have to do it would basically be like if you took mankind and took all morals, took all ethics, all relationships, and threw it aside and said, I'm going to wake up this morning and I'm going to do whatever makes me happy, exactly the way I feel. If I see a female, and that animal instinct, if you think about it, when men act like crazy wild animals, what does those women call us? They call us dogs. Well, that's because a dog is going to do what he wants to. He's selfish. These turkeys become that way. They will literally peck the eyeballs out of their brother if it means that maybe they can breed two more hens or even one more hen. So an immense battle, an immense territorial ground. It's like gang fights every day when turkeys walk out in food plots. If they display then a lot of times other turkeys will come running to that. So most of the time in a decoying situation, I'll use a male decoy, or say a Jake decoy, or a gobbler decoy to come up. And let's just say I got I'll use you and Dale Earnhardt's example. I got Stone Cold Steve Austin strutting with 7 hens, and you've made friends with the late Dale Earnhardt. He's still alive, and he's out there strutting with you. Well, all of a sudden, you're out there. I cannot get you, or I can't talk to you in a way as imitating a woman to make you leave this flock. But y'all out there, 2 alpha males, and you're strutting with the most beautiful women on earth. Well, I can pretend to be even prettier than these 7, but you're smart enough to know I'm not leaving 7 for 1. But all of a sudden, here comes this old redneck, little old cocky guy called Michael Waddell, walks out in the food plot, and I get 100 yards, and I don't even make a hen noise, and I'm over there flexing and saying, y'all need to work out, and I'm going to come over there, and I'm going to screw all y'all's hens anyway. 98% of the time, you and Earnhardt are going to drop and lose your hens, and y'all going to run over here to give me the stunner, son. Y'all going to put the hammer down on me and beat the cornbread hell out of me. And so that particular illusion that I showed this turkey, which are very much alpha males, they have fought for the right to have these hens. They don't want anybody intruding on that. That same kind of scenario goes along with the elk woods. This same thing goes along in the deer woods, but you just got to kind of put yourself in that situation. They have no concern that they have any loyalty to that group of hens other than the fact that they realize they want to breed them all. And so you have to realize all that. And the more you understand the scientific ways of that and the natural ways of that, you become a lot better turkey hunter, and really hunter in general.
There was a YouTube video out where you basically gave 3 tips of turkey calling. And do you remember those 3 tips? Because one of them was about calling too loud, or because a lot of people get concerned about calling too often. When I did try to turkey hunt, man, I'd go out there with my call box. Man, I'd hit a few licks, and I'm so impatient, I'd just get up and haul ass, go to the next location. But do you remember those 3 tips you gave out on YouTube?
Well, the biggest thing probably was, if I remember right, is you got to be careful. I believe that sometimes you can't necessarily call very too much, but you got to use the good turkey rhythm, and you got to call soft a lot of times.
Right.
But you also don't want to call too much. And keep in mind, even though a turkey don't have the intelligence of a human, they have instincts. And so just like we have instincts, it's no different than anything else. So you almost have to put yourself in a situation, what would manipulate you? So if you got a loudmouth broad over in the corner of a bar, and I hate using this, but sometimes if you don't understand hunting, it's easier to put yourself in a human environment. And she's over there and she's like, hey guys, I'm available, and my name's Sharon, whatever it is. If she's talking real soft spoken and talking sexy and smiling, she's not saying too much. But if all of a sudden she paints the illusion that she's got, 4 packs of Marlboro Reds, and she's smoking cigarettes, and she's just screaming and telling you how hot she is, and you run over here and yelling loud and never shuts up, even to the most, desperate guy, he's going to eventually kind of get cautious of this loudmouth broad. He's going to be like, wait a minute, I don't know. I mean, this don't seem just right. So when you're turkey calling or pretending to be a hen talking to another gobbler, you definitely have to keep, what could I do to sweet talk and to be very attractive to make this turkey, make it feel real to this turkey. And so it becomes a true communication. And like I said, it sounds crazy, but it works. And so the more you can learn about it, you don't want to call too loud. You don't want to call too much, but you want to add as much realistic things as you can and understand that language. And don't keep it so plain. You want to add some sweet talk to it and some different inflections. And the more you get better at that, the more successful you'll be in calling turkeys in.
So, man, I know most of you're really busy between September and June and March and May, or is that September, January?
Really, between September and January, we're really busy on the big game stuff, deer, elk, and stuff like that. And then during the March through May, turkeys, we're real busy. And then we'll do an odd bow fishing show, and maybe we go do some hog hunting and different things.
So with wrapping up our discussion about turkey hunting, what's next for you in 2016 with Bone Collector and Real Tree Roadtrips?
I think really the biggest thing is where I'm at right now, man. I've been blessed. I've been working in the hunting industry for 20 years. And, one of my biggest passions is to help educate people on what really country living's all about and outdoor lifestyle's all about. I think there's a lot of miscommunications. And I do think in some cases, Steve, there's a lot of people out there that kind of bring a lot of machoism to hunting, and really hunting ain't about being machoism. I mean, you can be good or maybe you can be even a little better hunter than your fellow hunter, but hunting and living outdoors is for everybody, man. It doesn't matter, and that's what we had an opportunity to prove when it came to these different people from walks of life, from celebrities to everyday Joes to women and single moms and to kids. I think if you can get somebody outside and teach them about God's renewable resource, and you can have more opportunity to share, what it's like to just be outside, I think you can build a core in somebody that builds a really cool roots. And there's something you can do with your kids and your family that becomes just a solid base that when you get through hard times or you're going through depressing times in life, when you can just go outside and see a sunrise, it ain't about shooting something. That's the biggest misconception. The hunters are the ones that try to give back, to protect these resources, to even sometimes protect those resources from Mother Nature itself, which can be way crueler than anybody who wants to hunt an animal. So I think my biggest passion is coming up now that I'm at this part of my career. I want a chance to give back more, to help people understand what it's about. And I think that's the biggest message we at Bone Collector want to do, man, and just realize that we're assets to America. We want to get up, we want to work for what we get, and we want to promote something that we feel very passionate in, and that is being outside, knowing what it's like to, grow some tomatoes in your garden and to get away from concrete, from steel from time to time, and just get a fresh swig of cool mountain water. And also, hey, if you want to get around that campfire and get some good old corn liquor and moonshine, ain't nothing wrong with that too. But if you also want to sit there and breathe some mountain air, when people get some of that, and I think you can attest to this, Steve, when you live a crazy life and you just always on the go, ain't nothing like just relax around a campfire and breathing that mountain air. So that's the thing I want to promote. I think it's something I'm obligated to do based on the life I've had a chance to live and the places I've had a chance to go. And also, one thing else I'll say in closing, man, I've had a chance to visit countries I never thought I would see, from Zimbabwe to Botswana to Russia, you name it. And it also has made me appreciate living in America, man. It's the land of the free. We got some problems we're working through, but when it gets down to it, we're still free to do what we want to. I mean, here it is. You're a wrestler, and you've had a chance to do what you've done through entertaining people through wrestling, and me through a turkey call. If that ain't a great American story, I don't know what is. And so only in America, man. And so it's cool to have an opportunity to spend time talking to you and talking to the listeners out there, because I passionately love the simple outdoor country lifestyle. And man, I can't say enough about it.
Your website is bonecollector.com. Your Twitter handle is @BoogerBottom. Now, is Booger Bottom an actual location? How did you come up with that name? Tell me about that.
It is, and it's funny. Getting back to corn liquor, here I'm talking about God one message, and the next message I'm talking about corn liquor, because Booger Bottom was originated from Warm Springs, Georgia, down there. FDR had the little White House down there, and Booger Bottom is an area, and supposedly it got its name from everybody in that area, because you had all these government officials and different things coming down. So, before Prohibition, you had all these people seeking out good, liquor. And so with that, there was an area just out of Warm Springs, Georgia, that they labeled Booger Bottom, and they labeled it that, try to scare off different revenuers who would come through these areas in this real rural area in Georgia, because they said there was a booger in this area. In reality, there was no booger. It was just a fabled creature that would eat and kill people, because nobody wanted nobody slipping through the hollers and busting up the moonshine still. So to this day, it's stuck. You get to Warm Springs or Woodbury, Georgia, and say, hey, man, I'm looking for Booger Bottom. They'll say, well, go down here and take a left. There's no sign. It's just an area. So, yes, Booger Bottom does exist.
All right. Hey, is there anything, you got an appearance coming up, anything that we can promote?
Actually, I do have some things coming on up, but
talk about them.
Everything we got is, on our website, bonecollector.com. I have a bunch of stuff I do with the National Wild Turkey Federation. So if you go to nwtf.org, you can find where I'm going to be there. Also, everything we do, we put on our Twitter @BoogerBottom, as well as our Facebook account, Bone Collector, Facebook page there. So we got a lot of cool things coming up this summer. I'm going to be in different places all across the country. And so, yeah, but go to websites and check it out, and bring your family out. And if you've never been part of the outdoor lifestyle and been to some of these shows and some of these appearances we do, I can promise you it's all family fun, man. You'll have a good time. Whether you bring your family or you're a full-blown hellraiser, I guarantee you'll have a good time and be treated with good hospitality at the outdoor conventions.
Well, let's see if we can hook up sometime this deer season. If you're in the South Texas area, let me know. And, man, I'm down there 75 miles south of San Antonio, so if you're swinging through my way in any of those counties within 150, 200 miles of me, let me know.
It would be an honor, buddy. And I'll tell you this, if you ever have that many turkeys eating all your corn up, 150 of them, and you can't get to them, just call your old buddy Waddell, and I'll come down there and do a little management for you. So because you got to save a little of that corn for the deer, man. You can't have turkeys eating it all out.
Hey, I gotta share one story with you about how exciting. When I was living in Georgia, my neighbor called up a turkey for me, and he was really proficient at it, really good. And this was my first turkey. And, man, when he brought that bird in, he had his decoys set out there, and that bird came within 25 yards, and I put it on him. And I'll tell you what, I guess you would call it turkey fever, but my heart started beating out of my chest, and I've been hunting since I was 8 years old, I guess. And I'll tell you what, the thrill of watching that damn gobbler come in was just amazing. And it was just, it's something I got to get back to. And now that I was at the ranch a couple of months ago with my wife, and we saw three birds out there. And I was just happy to see 3 turkeys. So we don't have them like we used to, but I'm going to get out there and start chasing them again. And next time I see you, I want the recipe for that corn liquor.
Hey, brother, I'll hook you up, Steve.
All right, I'm talking to Michael Waddell, the bone collector. He's finding success. Everybody, if you watch the Outdoor Channel and watch all of his shows, Bone Collector, the real Tree Roadtrips, you know how good of a man he is, how hell of a hunter he is. He's very passionate about what he does. It's good talking to you. I'm glad we ran into each other at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I look forward to let's do another show. Let's do another show around a campfire and just shoot the breeze. I want to get your deer set up. So Texas versus Kansas. So let's do part 2, but let's do it in person.
Hey, that's the deal, buddy, and I would love it. And it's been an honor, man. Been a fan of yours for a long time, like I said. In Booger Bottom, Georgia, let me tell you something. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's the man, and I promise you that you think Earnhardt's cool. If I were to roll in there with Stone Cold, they would freak out. So it's an honor to be on, man. I appreciate what you guys are doing, man. Thank you.
All right, Michael, I'll catch you later.
Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off into the sunset. And y'all know what I'm doing. When Mama gets home, I'm walking down to the club, and I'm going to order some Broken Skull Ranch margaritas and get my buzz on. I ain't going to be washing no dishes tonight. Hello. Hey, man, I got something for you to watch. If you enjoyed my conversation with Michael Waddell, and I'm looking forward to part 2 when we do it in person, go to YouTube and just type in the Bone Collector, Michael Waddell, or Real Tree Roadtrips, Michael Waddell. You'll get a couple of episodes, well, a lot of the episodes on there, actually. And, man, they got some good BS on there, just as far as camaraderie, sense of humor, straight up high ethics, and just good, honest people. So check out some of his shows and listen to me when I talk to Michael here, hopefully in November and December, when we talk a little bit about deer hunting and really just shoot the breeze and tell more stories and talk about hunting. But that's what I'd like for you to watch. Highly entertaining show. They put a lot of work, time, effort, and passion into it. Great people, and it was good seeing Michael in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where we got a chance to hook up and great talking to him. I look forward to seeing him in person now, shaking his hand. He's a good man. Hey, folks. Broken Skull Challenge. I think it's going to be right around the corner. We'll be in production here pretty quick, but all them new shirts y'all saw me wear this year, they're still available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. All the damn stuff from Redneck Island's on there too, but the easiest way to really do it, if you don't go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin, is go to BrokenSkullRanch.com. If you go to BrokenSkullRanch.com, there's a link for everything that's Steve Austin, and yes, that includes being able to buy Broken Skull IPA, the best IPA in the United States of America from El Segundo Brewing Company, and there's a link there that goes to InsideTheCellar.com, and they'll ship it right there to your house. You people in California know you can find my beer, Broken Skull IPA, at Whole Foods Total Wine here in California. You people online, InsideTheCellar.com, but you can get there by going to BrokenSkullRanch.com, and that includes the Cold Steel. Cold Steel. Damn, that sounds good. Steve Austin Broken Skull Knife. All you got to do, you can go to coldsteel.com or you can go to BrokenSkullRanch.com. We got a link that'll link you right there to that knife, and it's badass high quality. That thing was assembled in Taiwan, but those are all guaranteed 100% American parts on that thing. That's a pocket knife that will last you forever. It's priced at $111. Anyway, that's enough about all that. I want to say thank you guys. I appreciate the word-of-mouth advertising y'all are doing on behalf of this podcast, because I ain't got an advertising budget up in here. And I appreciate y'all supporting the sponsors of the Steve Austin Podcast, because they're the ones that let me do this for you free twice a week. So big ups to DDP Yoga and the DDP Yoga Now app. To Onnit, go to onnit.com/Steve to get 10% off your order. To Weebly, go to weebly.com/Austin to get started on your website today. To workswitchdriver.com. Use the promo code Steve to get free shipping and 10% off your order. And, of course, big ups to Amazon, who have been supporting this podcast since day one. Folks, if you use my Amazon links whenever you're doing any online shopping, Amazon will kick back a couple of bucks to the podcast. It will not cost you nothing extra. There ain't no hidden fees or charges. You can buy whatever you was planning on buying and help out the podcast in the process. All you got to do is go to podcast1.com, click on the Killer Deals button in the top right corner of the page, and then hit the Steve Austin Show button. I got Amazon links for the USA, UK, and Canada. If you use those links, you will help support the podcast to help us pay our production costs so we can keep this show flying for the next, 10 years. Let's see how long it can last. But I need your support. Ain't asking for a handout. This is all straight up. Amazon prices, they just kick back a little bit to the show to help us pay our bills. The best thing to do is to bookmark that so you can do it in one step right there off your browser and help out the podcast in the process. Swig of beer or water for the working man, working woman. And hey, keep listening. The 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. And until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
I want to say thank you to Drop Stop, one of the great sponsors of this show. Drop Stop is the original patented seat gap filler, as seen on TV Shark Tank. Get the original Drop Stop at buydropstop.com and use code STEVE for 2 free gifts and free shipping. Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One right after this.
When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
AP Update, I'm Ross Smithson. Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, says U.S. officials are talking to French intelligence personnel as they try to determine what caused a Paris to Cairo flight to fall out of the sky over the Mediterranean.
Is there any information that we have that would shed light on any of the passengers? But there's nothing yet to confirm the cause of the plane crash.
FBI Director James Comey says intelligence agents from around the world, including some of his, are collaborating on possible causes of the Egypt Air crash.
So far, at least, we have no claim of responsibility or evidence that this was an intentional act, but the FBI, as you would expect, is working with our partners around the world to try and gain a better understanding of what happened. Given that we don't see any indication yet.
None of the 66 people on board American. AP Update, I'm Ross Simpson.